allows us to drill down a little bit further into some of these departments than we would otherwise do. And I think it certainly helps us be a little bit more efficient in our decisions. And as we've been reminded many times, is probably the most important decision we make all year. However, that does not necessarily mean it's cast in concrete. We have in the past obviously made adjustments during the years, and I think during the year, and I'm sure we will this year, but this is the best we can do with a snapshot in time. Look forward to our discussion and deliberation. Again, there's not a lot of structure to this, and hopefully it'll be a free flow of dialogue between all the parties, whether they be staff, board members, or otherwise. So, Julie, again, probably look to you to begin if you want to kind of summarize the numbers as we work through them over the past couple of days and where we are now. I think that's probably, is that okay with the board? Is that a good starting point?
Then I'd suggest that we talk about a couple of items that were off. We're not in the agenda, but are policy questions. Principal among that was the economic development strategy that you want to be included.
Well, and I think there were a few things on your original list that we'll have to weave in somehow. There are potential hiring freezes and so on and so forth, some other issues that you had in there.
We'll talk about all that
we haven't necessarily discussed. And
but again, I'd suggest that, if there are more, before we get down to trying to solve the problem, let's know the scope of what the problem is. I guess my suggestion. So if we're going to include some of these other items, let's include them at the beginning. That maybe they don't survive to the end at that point in time. And then in your budget report, there is a budget strategy options page. I think that would be page 1 behind the memorandum. We might want to talk about so everybody understands that, and then I guess look to your colleagues for discussion on that.
I'm open to anybody's help to kind of wend our way through this. So consequently, as I said, maybe best is Julie, you can set a foundation for where we are. Sure. Retta, thank you very much for the breakfast.
I don't know. Ours I know.
So Jim doesn't want it. He doesn't.
I just had breakfast like 30 minutes ago.
I had breakfast about 3 hours ago.
I had it about 3.5.
I do not go without breakfast. I don't
either.
I won't.
That's my main.
I don't have to get up.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Okay.
Karen?
So I just got up here where we are kind of after yesterday's and the last 2 days, the changes that have been made. So the general fund is in the yellow, but we are now at $305,433.
Where did we start?
This is the fund summary.
We were negative.
We were a negative $678,341 on the 20th of August. That was that. I was just looking at that printout to kind of see what kind of progress we started. We started 100.
I think it was a little less than 100 in the red.
In the red,
I can't remember now. I could go back and look.
So we found $400,000 essentially through the process.
No, we found more than that because it was.
Well, we were 120,000 to the good, and then we had a closing entry that had to be posted.
Made it to minus 19,000. So you've actually. So we went from 678,000 to 120,000 to the good, back to minus 19,000 to 305,000. So you generate 325,000 every day.
Yep.
Net result 305,000.
Yeah.
So this, I'll just put it back here. So right now we've got the 305. We still need to address the DA contracts. This we talked about yesterday. That's going to be the way it is for right now. Public safety is the yellow number. We're $1,711,285 in the red. So we need to address that. Probation is currently $125,693 in the red right here. And we need to talk about capital projects, the $45,020. And the fair is needing $26,646. And I think that's it. I think that's where we are. Yep.
Capital projects was what?
$45,020.
Still had to change.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Don't know exactly who wants to lead off. I mean, obviously,
Well, Mr. Chairman,
you want to go to the economic
If
development?
we start with the economic development strategy, when
wanna
we
get
brought
that?
this to the board in May, the recommendation referred to the budget committee. There was a pretty comprehensive discussion of this, and I think it was
Right.
unanimous that the board wanted to include something in the budget. There is nothing in the budget, so if some part of that $100,000 is going to be included in the budget, that would be my request for direction on that. Do you want me to review it in more detail, or?
I would probably like it.
Okay. I mean, I think as the board remembers, this was the implementation of the SEDS report. You'd asked me to put together a plan, which I did. The plan has, if you look just at the last page on page 3 of the memorandum, had really 4 major elements. One was a contract for professional assistance to help market the county and implement the plan, and I recommend we work with Shaven Associates. And that was a $25,000 cost. We talked about having somebody here locally to deal with implementation of the plan, and we just plugged a number of 25 in that. We had wanted to set aside $10,000 just to take travel or produce documents as we targeted various industries as we move forward. And then lastly, we wanted to provide some money, and the plan said $40,000 to try to move forward with our fundamental strategy, which is mountain biking, to work on trails, work on facilities to market the county as an option. I would think that if you wanted to do the minimum amount, I think that the contract with Shaven would be a good start, and the rest would sort of follow on as resources made that possible.
Okay. Thank you very much for the summary. Any thoughts by board members on this? I mean, again, this is an item that doesn't appear in the budget. Certainly something that I'd personally like to see in there. However, might have to address the rest of the numbers and see where we go with that before I'd be able to vote for it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it too. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what I hear all the time, economic development.
We've already made an investment of time and money in it to get it off the ground or to get it analyzed anyway. Pleasure of the board. You got any feelings on it at the moment?
And I guess what we need to do is just put it on the list and see where we are with money. Because, I mean, right now we're at a deficit.
We're still...
So,
Again, Mr. Nichols indicated that at a minimum, if we were to implement the plan, we could start with maybe the 25,000. Supervisor Chapman, I know this is your passion as well. Any comments on it? Or?
Well, I mean, in terms of the hierarchy and the priority of things, I think it's something that's important that I would consider a secondary inclusion in the budget behind the $200,000 for the swimming pool. So as we create our various lists, that's how I would rate it. And to be honest with you, when we get to the point after we work through everybody's numbers and stuff, I'm of the opinion that we have sufficient funds available, or could have sufficient funds available, that could accommodate probably most everybody's list without impacting current services or jeopardizing the financial viability of the county. But as it progresses through the morning, I'll make my arguments, and when we get to that point in time when we push to shove, would I include this as one of the things that I'd like to see added into the budget? Absolutely, I'd be in support of it. But if we have to throw babies overboard, I would throw this one over before I throw some of the others over. So to put it into perspective.
Second item that we've talked often about that is not included in the budget is an ADA transition.
Yeah, I had that on my list.
we've long, looked at the liability we potentially have, because of various county facilities, the jail maybe being one of the major ones not being ADA compliant, and that the preparation and adoption of a transition plan is an affirmative defense against that ADA plan. Basically, what a transition plan is an analysis of your non-compliant public facilities and a plan to address them over time. From a risk management viewpoint, having that plan in place would help you in terms of trying to settle or minimize any cost of a potential future ADA lawsuit. And again, it's not a sexy thing to spend money on, but if you've got
some liability,
if you get sued, in an ADA lawsuit, I mean, the law says that if the plaintiff finds one thing that's non-compliant, which won't be hard in a county of this age, they get all their attorney's fees, and they usually charge a lot of money. So I mean, an ADA lawsuit is going to cost you no matter what. Pardon me?
That's why attorneys go into it.
That's right.
It's just a moneymaker.
So a transition plan is again, a partial defense against when that happens.
And I think, Mr. Anderson, you had a figure on that, on the plan itself?
I think we'd estimated that $50,000, which was the number that would probably be necessary. It might be less, but that was the number that we've kicked around here as potential.
50,000 for a
transition plan.
Exactly. What is that? It's all just ADA?
It's all just ADA.
Just having the plan alone.
Yeah, it's a document. I mean, you hire a consultant that analyzes your facilities and writes a document, and it comes up with a plan that says this is how we're going to fix it over the next 150 years.
Spend $150 million doing it.
Anyway, and one of the things that we've talked about again is not included in that.
Okay, anything else to put on the list before we start discussing it?
Are you taking input for adding?
Adding anything?
Well, speaking of that, I do have one I would like to, after spending more time looking at the stuff we had last night.
Appreciate it.
One of the things that I zeroed in on, and I asked Julie if she can just confirm what I'm seeing, because I was really, it's one that I just sort of kind of have a tendency to gloss over, but it deals with fund number 119, the accumulated capital outlay fund, and this is one that we had talked yesterday that we have in the budget, $500,000 being budgeted for expenditures. At this point, there was nothing earmarking the $500,000, so this is a fund that could be used in the past. It's been utilized by, good, Bob's eyes are here now. I can see the is the $500,000, and when you take a look at the capital improvement plan, or the latest version of it, it's been in existence for a long time, but the updated current version for 2013 that Public Works Department provided or maintains. There's like $5 million. So you could, 500,000 is just a tenth of what is in there. So maybe the ADA plan that Mr. Nichols talking about is a way to kind of prioritize how we bring about those kind of changes. But anyway, but looking at it, it shows that we had $697,898 is the estimated fund balance, and I should say it's the fund balance at this late stage. The estimated is gone. We're looking at $228,500 being new revenues, which would be the property tax income, giving available funds of $926,398, and they're budgeting $500,000, which we can be identifying potential uses for, and then that leaves a projected balance of $426,398. The point being is that we have just shy of $1 million. It's now accumulated in the accumulated outcome fund based on what is rolled over in unused funds from before plus the new revenue. And we're looking at budgeting $500,000. So that's money that, in my opinion, is designed. That goes way back when, but the funding, as I indicated last night to the board at the end of the day, that had the board not doubled the ACO tax rate back in 1970, 7, this fund would be a heck of a lot less. And at the same time that we cut the property tax rate, which got locked in or frozen into place by Prop 13, this also got frozen into place by Prop 13, the rate that is used to calculate this. And it's really designed to deal with those one-time capital improvement type projects that we would have around the county, whether it's in our buildings or in the various departments. And so given that we have, I've always been under the impression that fund has been $300,000 to $400,000, and it's highly competitive for everybody wanting to use it to capitalize all the new computers. Now that everybody, just like we do with the cars, everybody pays a prorated amount per year into the computer fund, and so in the future, when computers are being needed, it's going to be funded out of the computer fund, just like we do out of the motor pool fund for cars, which is really the way to go. I mean, I think that is a smart business practice. So, but this fund is the kind of fund that is used for that. Our new phone system that went into place within the past year or so was funded. A big chunk of that was used about 2 or 3 years ago to get that project going. So to me, knowing that that's there, and given the passion we have about our buildings, and I know each of the board members have had projects lined up. We've done things at the Beaver Vets Hall in the Westwood building, and we did all the work using the mental health, was it the MHSA funding for getting the building down in Hurlong, retrofit. And Veterans Memorial Task Force, all task forces, got a long list of projects, and actually, if you look at the Veterans Hall, all the items that are on the capital improvement plan come to a total of $490,000, and 2 of those things are 2 $10,000 items is already built into the budget for getting the front doors replaced and all the locking mechanisms falling apart after about 25 years. And the tables and chairs, which were supposed to have been done last year but didn't get accomplished by June 30th, was now rolled over. Those are 2 minor items. But the biggest item, now that we've got the building renovated on the outside in terms of painting, people have taken notice of it, people are proud of it, they want to use it. And our biggest issue in terms of access to that building, particularly getting into the basement, it's pretty dangerous the way it comes in off the alley. You have to kind of go over this asphalt kind of a hump before you drop down into the concrete pad that takes you into the back door. Far from being ADA compliant, but it's just all the way around. It's just kind of a jerry-rig thing. It's been like that for 30 or 40 or 50 years. I mean, the building is 90 years old, so you can see how far it goes back. The expectation, the main entrance coming into the building is the front steps, which have some safety issues in itself, but is totally non-ADA compliant. We have a wooden ADA ramp off the alleyway or the street on the west side of the building, but the problem is the ADA ramp dumps you right out into the traffic lane, which is in itself. There is supposedly a handicap parking spot there at the base of the ramp. There's a sign on the building that says it, but in terms of actually having anything that would be considered ADA compliant, it's far from it. There's no markings on the road. There's no pavement. It's basically ground up, leftover remnants of asphalt that kind of kick to the side there is where you park and have to negotiate. So the task force is identified as probably its #1 priority now, and they've been working on. They've got the designs and plans, but it'll be on the east side of the building where we have the double doors. There's enough width there between the building and where the property line and the fence is to run a sidewalk that would go all the way from Main Street to the alley, full length. Then off that sidewalk there would be a ramp that would come down to the basement door, so it would be handicapped accessible, that way all done to grade and everything. And there would be, coming off the sidewalk, a ramp that would basically has to go to a couple landings, but it goes out to the front the southeast corner of the building, and then pivot back up and bring you a ramp to that entrance on the east side where the double doors, so the side facing the pizza place. And what it does is it would move the pedestrian access to the building away from the street side, from the cars coming and going. You would have to come to either of those 2 points. Of course, we have had the ongoing relationship with the Deal and Davy properties next door for primary parking, but the part closest to the back entrance, there's a space there for creating some handicap space that could be paved, and you could do the markings that come across the alley to tie into this new east side thing. But anyway, this whole project is slated and estimated to construct new ADA access ramp is $100,000, and that is something that I think needs to be done. The next most important thing that needs to be done, which I wouldn't necessarily go for, but if we are in the mood of distributing and using these funds, and that is establishing some handicapped restrooms on the main floor up there, basically where the VSO offices are on the southwest side of the front part of the building, would be converted to men's and women's restrooms, so it would be accessible from the main auditorium coming in off the entryway. The offices would be moved, co-located on the southeast side of the front of the building, and would be shared there. So in terms of maintaining office space, there still would be offices up front. But those are the two probably biggest obstacles for making the Veterans Building a super functional place for the community to use. And so right now what I'd like to see us add in what I have on my list is, after we go through everything, we still have funds and can identify the funds available. But I'd like to see $100,000 put back into the budget for the ADA access for the Vets Hall, and that the funding source for that would be from this ACO fund, which according to this shows that we have up to about $900,000 to work with, even though we were only planning on allocating and working with $500,000. The other thing I've realized, and this is not a discredit to the Public Works Department, because I think Pete Heimgegner does a phenomenal job with the demands he has and the time he has. There's only so much to go around, and with Larry Millar and the rest of the department, is that we could go ahead and put all these things in the budget, but just physically how much can they supervise contract work to be done. And so I think my indifference to Pete and not overload him to the point where he just kind of was crushed under the weight of the demands placed on him in the budget. He's not in the room, but he's probably hopefully upstairs listening. Is that I would prefer to see the handicap access be done this fiscal year, with the idea that we'd have funds in there to do the bathroom project the following year, because those two things, once we get that done, then I think the building is in a position where it would be one of the premier meetings, and I think the revenues that could be generated from the use of the building would help, long-term maintenance and repairs on it. This building has been, I would have to say, was ignored for the most part, maintenance-wise, for the first 50 to 60 years of its history, and it wasn't until the task force was organized in about 1990, and the last 20 years we've spent trying to revitalize and bring the building back. I mean, it needs to be put on par with the building that we have, the Vets building up in Beaver is, it's a fabulous facility. So, but I want to see this, be given that shot. So that would be the thing I'd add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, we will put it on the list, if you will.
That remaining money, that $426,000, can that be used for anything in the county budget?
Same thing as the five. Well,
does it have to go to buildings and grounds? I mean, capital.
No, it would be any sort of capital improvement project. I mean, that's also a good source of funding that could be used if we wanted, for the swimming.
You mentioned copiers and so on.
Well, yeah, copiers. We've used it for computers and phones.
Which can offset general fund, some general fund
The $45,000 that's in the line item, that's in the red up here, this is line item, where is it? I had it in front of me, and you're showing
150.
the 150 fund, yeah, there it is. The capital projects 150 fund, that 45,020. I would say that we eliminate that deficit by transferring the appropriate amount of money. Like I said, maybe take $50,000 from the ACO fund and put in there, and then because they had a $15,400 deficit to start with, and then with this budget would grow to $45,000 and change. Right. So if we took $50,000 and shifted to the capital projects budget, it would fund those items that were already embedded within for the various departmental budgets and eliminates that deficit. And leave it.
And I would ask, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, I would say
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a reason why you wouldn't?
You could just budget the projects in ACO.
Or you could change. You could shift all.
None of which really makes any difference whether you budget them in ACO or whether you transfer the money over, unless Julie or.
Well, what I would, if I could add,
Yeah, go ahead.
interject on that, I would say the capital projects, those are kind of the small little departmental budgets. It's a copier here, it's a whatever. And I would leave those segregated from bigger projects, which would be things like the restrooms or ADA compliant projects for the various county buildings. Personally, I'd take, if it was just me and if only I could make the decision, I'd take the whole $900,000 and put it into renovations to the courthouse and Courthouse Square, because we've got a lot of opportunity, but we also have a lot of need, and I think a lot of our space needs could be enhanced if we could get everybody located at Courthouse Square. But that includes expanding and building on the backside. But that's going to be a multi-million-dollar project to do it. But the $900,000 in the ACO fund would be a great start to try to get that whole thing off the ground. But I think what we have to do is be practical and take care of the operational needs that we have, and so we're not going to be able to devote all that money to something like the courthouse. But I would say keep the big projects in ACO and keep the smaller kind of stuff like we have in the capital projects 150 budget, and then periodically just transfer whatever we need to support it.
Julie, any comment on that? I mean,
I can set it up either way. If it's out of ACO, when the project's completed, I sign off on that. Mm-hmm. If we transfer the money to 150, it's more Larry and Peter, which is fine too.
Yeah, and I think they're very capable.
I would agree.
I mean, we're talking about a tenth. We're talking about a fifth. No, not even fifth. Of what? 0.05 of what the overall amount is. So $45,000 is not a huge amount of money in the scope of the ACO.
Any other board members have any comments on that? As I said, I see it being somewhat neutral.
We could also potentially pay for the transition plan out of ACO.
Yeah, and that would be an appropriate funding source if we kept.
I mean, one of the things that we may want to do is, because it doesn't really affect the bottom line.
Right, exactly.
Is maybe after the adoption of the budget, we create an agenda item, and staff comes in with a plan for the use of the ACO fund, and the board, works it over.
Right. And that would take care of some of these items we've already discussed this morning. Okay, but for the time being, then I hear no objection to going ahead and moving some of the ACO funds over to capital projects. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That don't change that.
Doesn't change the bottom line.
Yeah,
that's it. It's really more a matter of
we're slowly but surely trying to eliminate the negative balances that are out there.
Exactly.
So that's an easy.
Between that one and then contracts for DA, we discussed that one as well. It's not a it's a minor item.
If you want a motion to piecemeal to confirm it together, I'd say we make a motion to move $50,000 from the ACO fund to capital projects 150 to eliminate the small deficit that exists in that line item.
Okay. Is there a second there?
Second.
Getting moved by Supervisor Chapman, second by Supervisor Wasik to move $50,000 from the ACO fund down to capital projects. Got that, Julie?
Yep.
Okay, very good. I wish all the solutions were as simple as that one, Jim. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Susan.
Not that simple.
It may not be. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you.
Chair votes aye. Is there any opposition? Okay, now it carries unanimously. Thank you, Supervisor Pyle. Been a long time since we've taken a vote. We've been sitting here for a couple of days. We get out of practice.
I'll keep an eye on you.
Oh, you're a good man for that. Thank you. Okay.
Why don't we go over the budget strategies?
I think that's probably a good idea.
Is it time as any to do that?
Yeah.
Be sure that I understand, Bill. Whoever wants to take a shot at
Karen,
it.
you want to go through the budget strategies implementation, page 1 of
Yep.
Yeah. Usually they'd be better
Okay.
suited for that one.
All right, I'll fix this one. Let me just check this real quick. Okay, so 150 is now in the black. Okay. On the budget strategies page, the one in the front of the book, that's what you guys wanted an overview on? Discussion on?
Yes.
Right.
I tried to use this as a guide. I did put on there, I did this Thursday afternoon before we were trying to get the binders completed and out for the agenda. So I just put together some things. I didn't put this on here too. This is the page we're talking about. I don't know if it'll be big enough up there. This top portion is things that are currently in the budget that we've already kind of discussed.
These things are all in the budget currently.
Yes.
The
So
top
we
half.
have the top portion. So we have the OPEB recovery from non-general fund departments. We're in year 2 of 3, so we have one more year of that. After next year, we'll have the $435,000 again, and then it will drop off. The teeter proceeds this year, we have a one-time transfer of $200,000 and an annual source of $400,000. The PILT's already been received. That's higher than it has been in the past. I hope that it stays that way. So that's been a budget help the last 2 years, Karen? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is in the budget, and that's already been received for the fiscal year right now. Timber tax is a little higher, $150,000, and we talked about the $620,000 that's currently in there. That's a one-time also. So that the total one-time impacts to the budget is $1,255,000.
That's on your teeter. You got the 200,000 one time and the 400 annual. Explain that.
The 5-year average.
Are we going to go to your chart now?
No, you don't have to go there right now. But typically, $400,000 is about what we can expect each year. There were,
And that comes from where?
that's the delinquent secured taxes. When
Principal and interest or
Penalties and interest.
principal and interest received on penalties and interest received on delinquent taxes.
Okay, the penalties make up that 400,000.
Pardon me?
The penalties from delinquent taxes make up that 200,000 one time, 400,000 annual.
It's all penalties and interest from delinquent taxes
Yeah,
that the general fund receives because of the teeter.
That goes into the general fund.
Correct.
Then we put back money into this teeter account to cover delinquent taxes.
Well, and we could go through that
You want to do that later?
handout if you'd like me to now or later, whatever you're.
We're going to come back. Let's go through this page and we'll come back to that.
But basically, we can pretty much count on $400,000 annual revenue from teeter interest and pensions.
Okay, and that's all on the budget, that $1,255,000.
Right.
Good enough, okay.
$200,000 was extraordinary because of the recovery of a bad economy.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, so those are just some of the bigger ones. I mean, there's some other smaller, but I just tried to focus on the largest ones that impact our budget on that top part. Then, like I said, I made a list that is just for board consideration on options of where we have money that might be used for the purpose of balancing the budget, and that's just the board's discretion. We can not pay the current year annual OPEB contribution. That would be $52,000. So that would be a reduction in general fund public safety and probation. So that's a reduction in cost. The current year tobacco settlement revenue, there's a fund balance that could be used of $336,000. There's annual revenue in there of $300,000 that could be used for some purpose. Right now, the tobacco settlement fund just has the family resource centers budgeted.
$30,000.
Yes.
And that's $300,000 every year, new money?
It is until 2025.
after you'll be gone.
So then what's the one time?
For you, it's
Spend it, I'll be gone.
balance, it's-
I'll still be alive, I hope.
yeah, right.
There you
An
go.
allocation of $167,000 in tobacco settlement funds last year, and that's included in the carryover fund
And
balance.
that's in addition to the payment, the annual.
Correct.
Say that again, Karen.
In last fiscal year, we received approximately $167,000 in a one-time tobacco settlement allocation, and that was in addition to the annual $300,000. So, again, that's one-time.
One-time deal. But that's in the budget already.
Correct. No, I'm sorry. It's
No.
No.
It's sitting in Fund 169.
Everything below the line here are resources potentially available to your,
Right.
solve your budget issue.
I have a question. The 300 is listed here as available, but you said 30,000 was budgeted out for family resource. So is there 270 or was there
300 is
330?
available.
There was 330 to start with.
I think we receive a little over 300,000 per year. It does vary a little
Yes,
bit, but
yeah.
340.
So
So
after the family resource,
there's still 300. that we can use.
$336,000 after the family resource centers
So we
in beginning fund balance.
so we have 306, but I just made it
Okay.
close enough numbers. We had discussed and have been discussing possibilities for additional teeter monies. So that 980,000 would be a one-time source, and that's
That's the penalties and interest portion of the payment, not the principal back
Correct.
taxes.
right. The property tax admin fees Karen discussed yesterday, that's Fund 140. There's a one-time fund balance that could be utilized of 110,000.
Can we stop, Julie? You got me confused there. What with the teeter up top and the teeter down below? I mean, how is that?
The teeter up on top is currently in the budget. That was money that,
That's everybody else but Dyer.
correct. This would be more related to the Dyer Mountain.
It's
The
also
one down
money-
below is more dire.
It's
All dire.
All dire. Okay, thank you.
The amount on top is also money that we've already received. It's in the bank. The Dyer redemption is, we're speculating still.
Okay, got it.
When Richard went to the tax sale, I mean, like Mariners Resort,
Right.
like a whole bunch of other properties, he had a fairly successful tax sale in May when properties being, that's what generates the 400 and the 200,000 at the top. The Dyer is separate from that.
And that's-
When we collect the dire taxes, this is what will be left to put in the budget.
This is
That
the
property.
The interest portion automatically comes.
The rest of it's already
Yeah,
spent.
it's automatic. There may be.
No, it's not. There's over $2 million in principal
That's already spent.
tax that comes in addition to the principal and interest.
This is
That's what Karen wants to
This
talk
is the
about.
penalties
right.
here. It's 980.
Yeah, this-
That's what we can put.
That's not in dispute.
That can go into general.
If it occurs.
That can go into the general fund. The other
If it occurs, that
Yes, it could.
It's spent.
we'll debate the remainder later. You look good in glasses, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Julie.
And I put in big bold letters estimated because
Right.
that truly is an estimate. So we're back on the 140 fund. That's one-time monies that's sitting in fund balance that could be used for some purpose.
That's general fund money. Anything you want to use it for.
It's general fund discretionary.
Yes.
Right.
General fund discretion.
So the answer to your question is yes. Then
What
you
what
want
you talking about?
Fund 140.
The 110,000. Next item down.
That's the contracts general. That's the assessor, the auditor, and the tax collector. But
And that's above and beyond what we had already budgeted.
that's sitting in fund balance, right?
Right. It's available.
There is the next line down, 50,000. Check that
But the
one.
fund balance is 560,000, and you're only getting 93,000 in revenue, so you have 650,000 available, and you're only proposing to allocate 132,000. So you actually, according to the cover sheet, your contract general Fund 140 has $521,000 there. That's more.
That was the amount that was held aside due to pending litigation.
Oh, yeah, okay. If you minus that, that would be what, this is what's left over at that.
That's right, yeah.
Now I got you. 'Cause I was going to say, when you're saying 110,000, it's like 500,000, but it's not.
This is our recommendation of what we feel, staff feels is available.
And I
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
There's $50,451 available in criminal justice facilities. And as a reminder, we used a good portion of this last year to support public safety. So I just put that down as that's a small amount that's left that we could use to support general fund or public safety. Then I put transfers from general reserve. The budget committee had discussed possibilities of that. I didn't put a dollar amount on there. There's $3 million available. That is our savings account. So I didn't put a dollar amount there, but we could budget something there. And to remind you that the only way you can budget something after we close the public hearing and adopt the budget is by 4/5 vote of the supervisors due to an emergency.
Due to an emergency, right. It's not.
So if we were thinking that we would want to use some of that, I'd rather do it now than later. Okay, so then we've already had the discussion on the ACO. We moved $50,000 from there already. So I would say that we have a one-time source fund balance that I'm recommending of $150 after the $50,000 we've already transferred, and there's an annual source of $220. That is available in addition to or on top of the $500 we already have budgeted and the $50,000 transfer. So that's an option.
So this 420 that you have here is above and beyond the 500,000 you had already put in the budget. So this reflects the balance of that 900,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And that could just go into the general fund and be used for balancing the budget.
We believe it can.
Answer is yes.
You're getting yes.
Thank you.
And I see that I put the CC. This is me working late on a deadline.
Okay.
The transfer from CC mitigation fund, I don't have an amount in there. Let's get one.
628,073.
I'm showing 578. At this point, it says, are you looking at, let me go look at it.
Well, that's because you have 50,000 being allocated in the budget for something that the amount that's available is 628.73.
The 50,000 is for something. Let me go look at it.
Yeah, I was going to say I couldn't quite look.
It's for the facility study. Let me see what we put there.
We really didn't talk about during the hearing
No,
the
you're
last
right,
couple
we
of
didn't.
days
No.
any use of the prison mitigation. So as far as I'm
It was
concerned,
for
It's available.
Pool study. Thank you.
How much?
Yep.
It's the pool study,
Pool study.
which is already.
Well, 50,000 we took out of it. And what's left?
5 would be 578.73 there.
578.
So I've got 578,000 that is fund balance that could be used for some
In the
purpose.
one-time column,
Yes, I put it in the one-time column.
I would.
Can't see the whole thing, but it is
Right.
one-time source. There's a possibility to reduce the contingency budget. I'm a little hesitant to recommend that. I put it a little lower on the list. As a reminder, we did use half of that budget last year at mid-year for adjustments that were needed. But that is something that we could reduce if we were trying to look for reduction in costs. That would be, and I've got that in the reduction column.
How much is in that fund?
400.
There's
Yes,
400,000.
the 400, that's
right now.
all of it. And that was empty. That would be nothing left.
Well, last year we used some of that for jail hospital
Right.
and things like that. So it just, it limits your options to deal with things as they come up. So if you do reduce that, and if we do, then maybe we budget some of the general reserve so that we can deal with emergencies.
I would be in favor
Right.
if we needed to be there, and I'm not convinced that we need to be there, but I would leave the contingency at where we have.
I think so too, for now.
Yeah, that's your
net.
ability to maneuver, and if you have to use anything, if you take anything out of contingency, replace the contingency from the general reserve. But I'm of the opinion that both of those can be left alone.
I put question marks on increased revenue fees. That's just something we've been talking about countywide and at the budget committee level. I don't know how much that would generate. There's several departments that have fees that they've been discussing, so that's just, I just put it on the list.
The timing of doing that, I mean, part of the year would be gone anyway. I don't know if I would budget a very high amount.
This is something that you would get started this year in anticipation of next year. We do have an old fee study at some point in time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
If we had as long as
I think that individual departments do.
Okay, but there's never been a comprehensive fee study. I mean, one option might be to put some money aside to begin that fee study process. Throughout this year, you could get those, figure out reports and make those decisions. Probably have minimal impact on this budget year, but we'll certainly go toward. I mean, obviously, whatever you use here is one-time money is likely going to show up again as a deficit next year. Mm-hmm.
We've already looked at individual departments, and departments have offered up ways that they could reduce expenditures already, as they've been coming in or trying to add revenues, but I didn't have a dollar amount on that. But if we did implement some kind of cuts to budget units, there's a possibility of some money to help solve the budgetary issue. And this last one, after having discussions with the departments, I know I think this is a realistic possibility this year. We've had probation and public safety indicate that they already know there's something. This makes me nervous. I have talked about this in the budget committee. I do see that typically there's some percentage, and I did do a study on this. It's been a few years, but it's about 2%. But I'm hesitant to do that because as the economy's been the way it's been, we don't have quite as much turnover. So it's kind of to me, it's a risky thing to put too much there. But if we already know that there's something that's already in existence at this point that we could factor in, I think that would be helpful.
What's the salaries and benefits in the general fund? 2% would be how much money? Do you have some rough calculation?
$150,000. I think is what the last time we put it in. I think it was $150,000 in the general fund. I could go there.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was my recollection. $160,000. Is that's 1%?
And it was $250,000 public safety when I did put this in a few years ago. But like I said, it makes me a little nervous. It does sit by itself, so when budget units are looking at their budget, they're not going to necessarily see that reduction. So it's something you have to watch a little more carefully.
So it would be $150 for general fund, $250 for public safety?
That's a high end.
General fund is $5 million salary and benefits. Public safety is $6.5 million.
But it's when I did the calculation, I backed out the overtime. See, I'm pretty sure I backed out the overtime. Anyway, there's something, I think, based on what the departments reported, I think there's something we could put there, but I wouldn't want to get too carried away with that.
And you don't want to include benefits either. The number I just gave you includes benefits. So,
the one time we did implement this, I do know that I had to watch it. I watched it pretty closely, and we did that. It worked that year, but it's not my preference to do that. It's kind of gambling that people will be changing.
2% would probably be pretty conservative, though.
So 2% from the general fund, 2% of $5 million would be $100,000, and then 2% of $6 million would be $300,000. So it'd be about $500,000, about $400,000 number.
Mm-hmm.
But these are vacancies they plan to fill, they just haven't got them filled. And you're assuming 500,000 worth of them they're not going to fill.
No, what you're assuming is, our process takes us a while to fill a position. When somebody quits, it's about 3 to 4 months before we can refill the position. By the time we recruit and go through the examination,
been some vacancy savings to date. I mean, theoretically,
as the sheriff pointed out, there are some positions that are hard to fill.
Sure. And again, if you implemented some sort of a hiring freeze, you could be more certain of that number.
So that's what I was thinking. I mean, if we're going to sit here and say that we're going to assume $500,000 worth of vacancies aren't going to be filled. I guess we better put a hiring freeze on, which I don't support.
Which, yeah, I certainly did not mean to put that out there as always.
No, I mean, I think the
Hiring
whole.
freeze, you can, rather than freezing the position for the entire year, you can just kind of slow up the hiring process too, and ensure that you realize that
But if
vacancy.
the department needs an employee and they're out there recruiting for it,
That would create a
I mean,
hardship.
basically we're telling, the signal we're sending to staff is don't hire anybody.
Right.
No, I think the message would be, that as you said at the beginning of your hearings, we need to downsize the county. The most painless way to do that is obviously attrition. So if you do a hiring freeze, then you have the budget committee or our staff in cooperation look at each of those vacancies and make a determination whether or not that's something we need to fill. And so, so a vacancy comes up in a department that there's a consistent, that's a service we can eliminate, then you eliminate that position without having to affect somebody's life.
I would only support that on a last case.
I was gonna say,
We're in the basement, we're broke, we're done. We better start freezing out.
I thought that's where you had it.
Yeah, that's where you've been all along. I don't know why you all of a sudden you're changing it. I mean, yeah, this guy's been falling for a month for you, and that's what, we've been in the basement, so, but I don't think we're there, and I'm with you. I'm totally opposed to freezing positions and stuff right
Certainly,
now.
I'm not for it either. But if you're talking about vacancies and you want to put a number in the budget for vacancies, and you want to be sure of it, then
the budget committee report of 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, that was presented to the board was 100% true, and none of this stuff that we've been going through here, was true. Then I'd be right with you in that respect, and we'd be probably in the need to have to do that, but we're not there.
Okay.
Not even close to being there.
I mean, in a normal time, in a normal period, an agency of our size will attrit about 1% a month. I mean, in this bad economic, that obviously is slower. So we are going to have vacancies.
Yeah.
I mean, just on the natch without
The
hiring.
department said that they knew of existing vacancies.
Well, if we're having to live on those kind of fumes in the budget, then we've got some serious trouble. But I don't think we're at a point where that is a significant amount that's going to make or break where we're going. Because even if it was like $200,000, one thing that I don't see on the list here, and maybe Karen or Julie or Marty or whoever can enlighten us to, because about 2 or 3 weeks ago, in conversation, I thought was Richard was here, and we were talking about our self-insurance trust with Trindell.
Right, that's on my list.
And a couple of years ago, we had like over $1 million that we were basically overfunded in terms of what we needed. We used that money to basically fund the OPEB lockbox, getting everything down there. But he indicated that we're in that, not near to that extreme, but according to the last report, we're about $480,000, I think was the number.
It's in the budget. I didn't get it on this list, but what?
Where's it in the budget?
It is in the budget, or is it?
It is in the budget. It's only based on the short time frame that we had, I only put in a factor for general fund, public safety, and probation, the 3 major departments, because those funds had to go back to every fund and budget unit that it came from. Mm-hmm. So I'm more focused on coming up with the amount and putting it in. So in general fund, public safety, and I put it in probation too, right, Karen? I'm almost sure I did. I have it back down.
It was the 3.
Thank you.
Just on the revenue side?
It's a miscellaneous revenue
Yes.
general fund, if I recall.
I can show you.
Yeah, can you find?
Yes.
I'd like to see where that sack is.
Let's see that it's in.
The reason why I bring it up because as I was going through the list here, we've had no discussion. I mean, the fact that you guys did that's great, but that was never communicated.
It was on my list.
And I was going to say $480,000 sitting out there is a big deal.
The budget committee did,
Share
Jim.
of that was $48,395.
$48,395
Right.
is the general fund.
It's the general fund share. And that's
right here.
190,000, yes.
What page are you on?
Yeah.
I think my page
On
is
revenue,
revenues?
you got
I
110.
think it's your page 3.
It's page 3. Trindell return of funds.
Okay.
Page 3.
Public safety's amount is going to be on page 13. $146,188.
How much again?
$146,188, and that's on page 3 under miscellaneous. And probation's amount is on page 16. $38,427.
Okay, found the miscellaneous.
And I just didn't think to put it on the list. That was a last minute thing that we were trying to get in there, so that helped us get to a better place.
Does everybody generally understand where that money comes from?
The insurance.
It's return of premiums. In other words, we had more money in the fund than we needed to meet our confidence. Yeah, it's our money that they're giving back to us.
Well, there's two parts to it, and I think we need to, we emphasize the part about the money we pay and get back, but we also need to emphasize the part, the reason why we're able to get the money back is that the claims and the cases that we have on file with Trindell have gone down from where we've been before. So that, I mean, it could be whether it's a workers' comp claim or some other, whatever the grievance type claim could be that we're having to litigate or deal with. That's what drives, our premiums that we pay, and then there's a confidence factor, and that's what we're funded for the cases we have. So
90%.
And I think the credit needs to go to the employees who do what they have to do or do what they do to keep from having a claim being filed in the first place. So that's what this money comes back to.
It's our training program. It's our risk assessment program.
Exactly.
It's a department
Risk
that's following up with the
works.
tailgate orders. And
So somebody stepping off the curb that was not clearly marked and twisting an ankle and generating a claim, that's what this money would otherwise be going to pay for. So I think that if anything, as time goes on, the value of that when we calculate any sort of benefits for, enhanced benefits for employees, wages or benefits, this is a good justification for that, is because the more that we can keep a safe operating and working environment, these claims are going to be down. We don't have to pay as much out in insurance, and we all do better.
On the workers' compensation side, that's true. On the liability side, having a nasty county council keep people from suing us.
Well, maybe that's what the difference is.
Cheap and nasty county council. Do you want to hear what a 2% vacancy savings would mean for each fund?
Yes, please.
For general fund, 2% is approximately $100,000. Public safety would be $120,000, and for probation, $40,000.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, that pretty much.
I'm going to go ahead and add that
Thank you.
return of funds to this implemented in the budget, because I think for the future I want to remember that was a one-time source of $233,000. So $233,010. If I added it up right, truthfully I did. I'll re-add it.
What are you adding to?
On the strategies, I just wanted on that top part that's already in the budget, I want to make a note of that, because that's a one-time source of funds. We're not going to have that next year. So just so I remember when we're looking at what we've done. It was an oversight. This line right here is the combination of what we just talked about. And I just added it to my strategies list. I'd be happy to reprint it for you, just so I remember that that's a one-time source of funds for this year.
Because she's showing it shows fund 100, 130, 145. So that's the salary and benefit vacancy rate?
No,
that's the Trindell money.
That's the Trindell money. That's a one-time.
Okay. Oh, I see. So that's not on our.
I just want to make a note of that.
She's putting it under, so when she pulls this up next year, she remembers that.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So next year we will not have that revenue.
No.
We may not have to,
Unlikely.
we may have to pay more.
Right.
That's an increase in premium.
We may have another $200,000 rebate. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well,
But it's not something you can count on year to year.
No.
That's right.
It's not something.
No, it's not something you can count on year to year. It's
Right.
a one-time rule.
So next year our revenue is going to be probably down 500,000 just from that one item.
So 233,000 is what you're adding for that money up here.
I mean, we could have used this money to offset the premium we paid this year, but the reason we didn't do that is because when you're looking at the budget year to year, that number fluctuates so much, it kind of creates
What is our
questions,
premium?
right? Pardon me?
What is our premium?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Can't pull that off the top
We
of
need
your head.
Richard Egan.
I would guess 600,000 for property and liability.
How much, Karen?
600,000?
Okay.
600,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
What, did you call?
600.
And then you add workers' comp on top of that. I'll get you that number.
Okay.
Oh, it's not important, Marty.
No, but it's important that you know that. I mean, that's a real cost of doing business. So
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is a big
Yes,
cost.
it is.
Actually,
And it fluctuates.
it's probably in your
I thought my
binder
premium
under
was
other
high.
information.
I did not put it in. I'm kind of waiting to see what we're talking about with that.
You didn't put the insurance premiums like you did.
The vacancy savings.
No,
That's what we were just talking about.
insurance
But you budgeted the
premiums as
premiums.
other information.
that was the question. What do we budget for premiums, workers' comp?
Yes.
Liability?
Insurance is $879,830. That's property and liability.
I'm sorry, how much?
879,000.
880.
That's property liability. Okay.
Property. Workman's comp is $1,200,000.
It's $2 million right there.
I mean,
It's $2 million bucks right there. Just
correct.
It's in the budget.
I don't feel bad about using $2 million anymore. Taking hammer stone.
No,
Some.
You're going back roughly 480,000 spread across all those accounts. So
Right.
that means that even though we put $2 million in, we only need to really put in 1.6, so they're giving us back money that we budgeted.
There is schedules of all the workers' comp, insurance, IT charges, and cost allocation in the back in section 15 that shows every budget unit what they're charged.
Okay. Let's move on.
all right. Well, we'll just
So-
accept all that. You come up with almost
What was it,
1.7 million, and
I'm
we'd be
not
done.
bad.
Yeah.
All that one-time stuff.
It was $100,000 for the job.
Oh, yeah, that would do it for now.
That's right.
Only problem is, I guess it's time, if it's okay with you guys, to listen to Karen on the teeter
Public safety.
trust.
Okay.
Because, I mean,
Would you like to talk about Teeter?
yeah, but I mean, there's a big chunk of money there. I want to be more, I want to understand better.
Okay, so I did pass out
Don't know what I
my
did with it.
worksheet on the Teeter, which is the alternative method of property tax allocation. The city does not participate in Teeter. They get their tax revenue based on the actual collection of taxes. There are two trust accounts we use to administer the Teeter plan. The first is the tax losses reserve, and that's the front page. There's a description of what that fund is used for, which is this fund collects the delinquent penalties, redemption penalties, and interest and unclaimed excess proceeds from tax sales. Fund was established to cover losses from tax liens as a result of tax sales. The fund must maintain 1% of all taxes teetered on the secured roll. The remainder to be transferred to the general fund as revenue. Then, if you look at the column,
Now, who set that 1%? Is that statutorily
that's
set?
statutory.
Okay.
If you look at the second column from the left, it says transfer to general fund, and basically that tells you what the general fund has revenue the general fund has received since the beginning of the Teeter plan. Since fiscal year 93-94, the general fund has received almost $6 million in penalties and interest. from this plan. Had we not been on teeter, we would have received a portion of that, but not as much.
So what's the revenue make?
Pardon me?
It makes revenue for us.
Yes.
What's your treasurer tax?
And basically, the reason we're realizing the revenue is that we're advancing all the taxes that are billed to all the taxing entities in the county. And that's the tax roll annually is approximately $20 million. So we're advancing those taxes to taxing entities from the county resources. And then when the taxes come in, we deposit those back to make that tax advance whole. And then we keep the penalties and interest on any delinquent taxes. Does that make sense to everyone?
Don't we just advance the taxes of the ones that don't get paid, the delinquent ones?
No, we tax 100% of the tax roll. So, of the
Whether it
secured tax
be
roll.
Standish Fire Department or Lake Forest,
Exactly.
Water Company, or
Anyone-
City of Susanville.
Yes, any agency.
Don't we charge the city for this?
The city chose not to participate back in 93, 94. They wanted their taxes based on what was collected. The advantages to the taxing entities, like fire districts, is they know they can
Right.
predict from year to year what they can anticipate in their revenue because they have limited resources. So it's helpful to them to know that whatever tax is out there, they're going to receive in that year.
Okay.
So then if we to participate in this program, what amount of monies do we tie up or
Did we advance?
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that.
or is that
That's the next page.
That's the next page, that's right.
Karen, on this page right here, you show a balance of $549,000 based on a transfer of $350. We've actually transferred $600,000, so that balance is reduced by that.
That's in the current budget, or in the budget we're discussing today.
Oh, that's 1213, okay.
Is 600,000. And you see that little calculation in the middle of the page, the estimate for fiscal year 13-14
Okay.
transfer to general fund. That is the formula I use to be able to project what will be available for the budget in the coming year.
So sitting in the balance right now is how much? 597?
549,000. And we have 600,000 included in the current year budget.
Okay, so that 549 is net of the 600 already included.
It is the 600.
It is.
It is. So, okay.
Say that again. What Marty asked?
How about what is the balance in the tax loss reserve account? And if you approve the budget as proposed, it'll be zero.
Right.
Well, it won't be zero. It'll be
we'll collect some
actually
every
it'll
year.
be approximately 200,000 because that's what we're statutorily required to maintain in the fund.
Gotcha.
$200,000,
Correct.
and right now the current balance is
549. So if you look at my little calculation there, the secured levy for fiscal year 12-13 was $20,136,000.
Exclusive of the city of Susanville.
It's right.
Okay.
1% of that is $201,000. The current balance of the tax resource fund is $549,000. I project activity in fiscal year 13-14 to be $215,000. That would be additional penalties and interest received. We have to maintain the 1% reserve, the $201,000. So available to general fund for fiscal year 13-14 is $597,936.
and that's where your 600,000.
That's, and I
That's
rounded
it.
it up to 600.
And part of this is there's a spike because of the properties that Richard sold periodically. So this is not an average year for.
It's not just property that goes to tax sale. It's all delinquent, any tax bill that is delinquent for any period of time,
Even for a day.
even for a day.
Yes.
So.
So Karen, what would be the downside if we took that money and put it?
Okay, now this isn't the money that Jim's talking about.
Oh, it's not.
No, this is a piece of it. This represents ongoing annual revenue to the general fund, and we use that each and every year.
Okay.
And that's already been distributed, right, in our budget?
Yes, that's part of our budget.
It's budgeted, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if Diner Mountain redeems their delinquent taxes, they have approximately $1 million in penalties and interest that will go into this fund. And that $1 million is on your list of options. I say 1 million, it shows here is 980,000. But that's an estimate. Until they actually pay, we don't know the exact dollar amount. Because every day, new interest charges are accumulating, so.
But we may not see that money for a year.
Yeah.
Well, it does, it is,
It should
Tax
happen
sale.
sometime during this fiscal
I mean,
year.
if the property actually sells, we'll get the money.
Right. And
When the property sells, we get the money.
if the property sells, we'll get the money.
I think-
If the property
I think-
doesn't sell, we'll get the money through a tax sale.
We'll get the,
That'll be
As of June 4th, 2013, and this is the property taxes, this is on your next page.
Okay.
You know, the
Let's go to the next.
975,000 is what the 980 was grown to, because this was through June 30th. So everything was
Oh, okay, you're talking the last
No,
page.
I didn't know that.
In terms of trying to identify where
Jumping
that
ahead, Jim.
you gotta go,
Whole explanation.
You gotta go slow for me.
Slow for all.
You can see that right now.
Okay, so I said there were two funds associated with the teeter. Two funds associated with the teeter allocation. The first one was the tax losses reserve, we just discussed. Penalties, interest, general fund discretionary, everything above 1% of the levy. The second one, which is page 2, is the tax resource fund. The definition of this fund is it's to be used as a pass-through for secured taxes collected and distributed to all entities via the teeter program. So, if you look at the second column, the second from left, second column, teeter transfer. That's the tax amount that we sent out to all the taxing entities in the county. So approximately, in this last year, about $20 million. We say teetered. We teetered $1 million in tax revenue to taxing agencies. So we advanced that. If you look further over to the column, the current secured taxes, first installment, second installment, that's what was collected in taxes for each of those installments during that particular year and put back into this account to make that teeter transfer amount to whole. So in a perfect world, actually it wouldn't be a perfect world for everyone to pay their taxes. We want there to be a certain amount of delinquencies so we can collect those penalties and interest. So, as you can see, if you look at the last line, fiscal year 2012-13, there was a teeter transfer of approximately $9 million. Current secured taxes, that's taxes that were collected, were $17,745,000. That was on the current tax roll. On the, just to the left of that, the taxes prior year secured, those are the delinquent taxes. We collected $1,321,000 in delinquent taxes in that year.
You're missing the word delinquent on your heading. So the delinquent tax.
Well, if
is
the prior year is delinquent.
Yeah.
So that's
Right.
So that's the story there. So then looking at this, once Diner Mountain redeems their delinquent taxes, that prior year secured column will increase by approximately $2 million. So currently, the balance of the tax resource fund is a negative $1,818,000. If you go down to the bottom to my little calculations in the middle of the page, on the right, the internal financing summary, this is kind of a recap of what happened in 93, 94. The original teeter buyout, the delinquent taxes in 93, 94 was $1,975,000. That's the amount that we sent out to all of the taxing entities to kind of buy their delinquencies. At that time, the board wanted to finance the teeter buyout internally. And as the story goes that I understand, the plan to do that was to apply the collection of the penalties and interest for the first few years of the plan would go back to the tax resource fund to finance that buyout. What happened was in 90, it says 96, 94, it should say 94, 95, $1,035,000 went to finance, to the internal financing of the plan. In 96, 97, another $500,000 went to financing that original teeter buyout of the $1,900,000. So the unfunded balance of the original teeter buyout is $439,709. Okay, that's the history part of this.
Now, what's required for us to do? I mean, you tell us what we do. Do we have to pay a dollar?
You know what? That's the board's discretion. That's at the time we did this, the board wanted to finance it internally.
But what's required? Are we, when we buy a bad tax bill, it's pay dollar for dollar?
I don't think there's a statutory requirement on this. It's like a prudent management is one of the requirements.
You can operate with as big a deficit as you're willing to accept the risk on.
Yes, exactly. So if you move into that middle calculation, the delinquent secured tax summary, this really is, this isn't part of the spreadsheet really, but it's related in that it's telling you what we're financing. Lassen County currently is carrying delinquent taxes in the amount of $5,486,000. That's countywide delinquencies on all the tax, not all the tax rolls, on the secured tax roll. It includes Dyer Mountain. $2 million of that is attributed to Dyer Mountain. That's the next line. So once Dyer Mountain redeems their delinquencies, there'll be an outstanding delinquent tax roll of approximately $3,500,000.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So like this, the balance here where it shows it's negative 1.8 million.
Yeah.
But then you say the delinquent tax totals like 5.3.
Right.
So if everybody paid today, this fund would have a balance of over $3 million. Is that?
Yeah, correct. If everybody takes. So if you look at the next box.
Because the question was posed like at what level of security. So I mean, we're better than.
That's the question.
Like that's 65% equity.
Right. That's the. And so if you look at the next box, the tax resource trust summary, that's kind of where you're going with this. The current balance of this account is a negative $1,800,000. If just Dyer Mountain redeems their delinquencies, the balance in this account will be $182,000.
Yeah.
In the black.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But we will still have $3.5 million in secured delinquencies that we're kind of cash flowing.
Yeah.
So, and that's where my concern is the cash flow issues. It's the board's decision at what level you want to finance it. Do you want to take $2 million out of this? Yes, you can, but you have to cash flow that from somewhere else. You can use general fund reserve. We have $3 million in the general fund reserve, but throughout the year, general fund and the other funds dip into that to a tune of $1 to $2 million. So my fear would be creating a situation where our cash flow is so low that we're using other funds, school funds, special district funds. We can do a trans, which is a tax revenue anticipation note. I don't think that's an ideal solution. I'd rather not go there because, yeah.
Just robbing Peter the way it's called is all
Right.
you're doing by doing
And those are that's my opinion. So, and opinions differ, and I'm conservative.
So what amount are we currently using to cash flow it? What
To cash
percentage?
flow this, we currently finance the teeter plan to a tune of $1.5 million.
That's what we have set aside.
That's what is in this tax resource fund that internally finances that cash flow demand.
I can't figure it out.
If you robbed it, it's just one-time money. It wouldn't help the future.
It is one time. It would be one
It would
time.
be,
So how does that tie into the negative, the 1.8 negative, and the 1.5 that we use?
Currently, we have the current negative balance, the $1.8 million, is a general fund obligation. It's but we do have a receivable to, offset that. So that's the good news.
What's the rest of it?
on the year end, if you stay on that page and you go to that year end balance, obviously you've been negative in the past, and then we had a couple of positive years there in the middle, and then started going negative again. I'm assuming that corresponded to Dyer's delinquency.
The years it was positive, you can see, was when things were, real estate was really booming.
Right, exactly.
So that's what
Exactly.
it's attributed to. I think and Dyer's delinquencies in the last
They would have
5 years
started
were a huge
about-
contributor.
Right, they would have started about then.
Yeah.
So the 1 million, that we're getting from Dyer, that money isn't, even if we don't put that money back in, we're still working off the 1.5 million.
Well, keep in mind the two accounts. So if you go to the very last page of the handout, this is an estimated apportionment of the Dyer Mountain delinquent property tax. If they were paid today, or if they had been paid on June 30th, 2013, this is how the funds would have been distributed back. The decrease in the secured abstract trust, so the total tax bill was $3,249,824. That would have been distributed, as you see above. The city of Susanville would receive $126,437. Westwood School Bond, 96. School bonds or bonds are not included in teeter plan. The Westwood School Bond would receive $194,488.
So Lassen County is actually already given Westwood that money.
No, because they don't
They're not
participate. The
included.
city and
So they're-
bonds don't participate.
So they're doing without that money.
Huh? They've been without that money all this time. That's correct. The tax resource fund would, and that's that account with the negative 1 million.
Yeah.
So
So that's needed to replenish.
exactly. Because when you receive your tax bill, when we send out the tax bills in October, in November, send out those anticipated taxes to the taxing entities.
We start distributing the money early.
Exactly.
Rather than waiting until
Right.
after the...
So for each tax year bill, Lassen County received that money already.
But if we didn't replenish that 2 million, we'd still remain with a 1.8 million negative. But
No, it wouldn't be. There wouldn't be a negative in that fund. It would be in the black by $181,000.
No, if we didn't,
If we
did not receive
Scooped it all up.
If, say, we didn't put this money back,
Oh yeah, it would.
so we'd still be 1.8, but we'd still be holding like 3 million of tax.
And we still have to cash flow.
$3.5 million. Yeah.
We still have to cash flow the.
So, but I mean, I think that's important to say
Well,
too.
it's very important, and I'll say again, I can't stress enough concerns about cash flow. I mean, we do have declining fund balances, and so it's and.
Again, that's been accumulated over years.
How much cash do we have in the treasury at any given time?
Well, it used to be around 63 million. I think and that's all taxing entities. That's schools and special districts. Currently, I think that's more like maybe 53 million.
And how much is county?
How much of it is county? Well,
20%,
you know what?
roughly.
Here, I have
Yeah.
Our color printer is broken. I don't think we can replace it immediately.
Oh, yes.
Don't give her any color.
Right.
That's
She's only black and white.
ACO fund.
I don't know. Sometimes color's helpful.
So our cash balances actually, and I should just send this around to you, in fiscal year 12-13, in October, we had the three major funds, general fund, public safety, and probation, had minus $2 million in the treasury. So those are, and so I'll pass this around. It's a 4-year cash flow, and hopefully it will kind of highlight my concerns about maintaining that general reserve.
So these funds are desperately needed to go.
I would not screw up this.
Yeah, the 2 million, but the 980,000 is not
That's-
designed.
We don't got
That's not.
And none of this
designed.
includes the assessment appeal data,
No,
which is,
Thank you,
remember
Karen.
offhand, I don't.
no.
Maureen, you remember what their appeal is? A couple $100,000, I think, or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's 24 of them.
Thank you for that.
So, and opinions differ, but that's
I
my
understand it
story.
now. You did good.
Yeah, you did very well.
If I could,
Go ahead.
well, the opinions do differ, and I disagree. I don't disagree with the analysis that Karen has made, but I disagree with the way the analysis is being applied. Okay, first of all, we're told by the treasurer that these are secure investments because if they don't pay their taxes, we sell them and we force collect. It's a 5-year delay. So we can't go wrong on a deadbeat tax bill is what it comes down to. We have two choices. We can either participate in teeter or we don't. And if we're going to have the willy-nilly, knee-shaking feeling, then we ought to get out of the teeter program and go back to administering the system the way it works and we get our money. The reason why we got into it, at least what was represented to us then, and I think it's still being represented to us now, is the opportunity to make a fabulous return on your money. Okay, and so the cash flow part of it is there. So to take, the cream of the crop, and just basically you're shuffling it over there, and it's wholly funded. So we basically have fully funded, that 5 years worth of bad taxes, and it's going to be cyclical, as is indicated by the charts and stuff. I mean, for a good decade, we were into the millions of dollars, and we capitalized it, undercapitalized it, even with the 1.5 million that we put in there to kind of create the cash flow. Then we went through some pretty good years. There were 3 years between 2000 and 2001, 2002, those 3 fiscal years. We generated, in terms of payments coming in, $7 million, but we didn't see any money being, I mean, we accumulated up to the point where we had this big amount, and that money came in. Instead of putting it back in here to expand the capitalization, the $1.5 million that we have roughly sitting there capitalizing the program from the get-go, we basically brought that money back into the budget and have continued to do so. We haven't done any capitalization augmentation since about 1997, and this program has functioned very well, and we have brought out some very good returns. I mean, we're talking about the principal side versus the interest side. The interest side automatically comes over. We take that. And in the case of the Dyer money, that's $980,000, probably going to be pushing $1 million by the time the sale transaction takes place, whenever it happens in the next, now until June 30th of next year, whenever they get around to crossing T's and dotting I's. But this $2 million to just say, okay, we're going to park it off the books that way. When we're talking about the skies falling, let's go back and use what the budget committee is representing, and we, emasculate all the other operational programs, and then park $2 million off because we can. And yes, we can. Karen's absolutely right. We can take all of it and put it into our general fund reserve, make it $5 million instead of $3.1 million. That's that we can put it there, and that provides cash flow. Does the same exact thing instead of tying it up under this perception. So I'm of the opinion that $2 million should be put under the control of the board through the budget, and we do it through the process. Now, maybe $2 million is more than what we really need, and if we do have excess beyond the needs that we've identified through our budget deliberations, and we have an extra $1 million or $1.5 million, whatever, and we want to park it there, I would say we, can go back in and shelter it in the teeter thing, because obviously the state's not going to be able to rip that off, or we can shelter it in the general fund reserve. I mean, it's there for our future needs. Now, the one thing that we haven't talked about, we got the budget committee report, and we talk about there's this structural problem with our budget. We got these gaping deficits, and we're patching the hemorrhages with one-time only funds. We can't do that, and we have been doing that for a while. That's been the discussion. But in all the discussions we're having, not once has anybody talked about where the structural problem lies in terms of the funding. And I think what we need to do is address that. And I think when you do that, you're going to find you're going to have all kinds of money all over the place. And maybe maybe if that's the case, if this is such a good deal, instead of putting the $2 million in, let's take the $980,000 that we really don't need because we got all these one-time monies, and let's put that in there too. Let's put $3 million in, and let's reduce it, even further. I mean, there's nothing that prevents us from doing that, and that's the point that I think needs to be made. And I appreciate what staff is recommending and what they feel comfortable in. But I got to tell you, it's an excess because we're here to make sure services are being provided. We're not here to be arbitrage, Donald Trump generating, 50% interest on our money. If that's the case, then we're in the wrong room. So to say that we can't have this, we can't do that, we can't be that, the sky's falling, okay, and then we're going to take $2 million and stick over here because we're going to make some fabulous return on investment, I think that's the message that the public is going to reject soundly. Because they expect us, to manage them. We're debt-free. We've managed, we live conservatively. So to say that we're all a bunch of drunk sailors, and there's people out in the street that hate everybody in this room. We're no good, lousy sons of guns. They come in here and they even film us and stuff. Okay, but we have delivered as a board and as a county department staff and county administration and the hardworking employees out there in the street. We've delivered, bare bones services with bare bones funding, okay, because of these kind of schemes. And I think, if anything, I'd rather see that money be used as to fund the few things that the public is really saying we need to have. And I think we need to also start investing some of this money into our employees rather than parking it into this kind of an investment thing. That, to me, is the debate we have. Now, let's talk about the structural defects in our budget. I mean, up until this year, it was about between $900 and $1 million that we're investing into backfilling or subsidizing in the juvenile hall operation. And with this new budget, status quo budget going forward, we're going to be looking at between $1.1 and $1.2 million. We've got 8 kids on an average daily population there. Maybe a good day or a good week, they might have 12. Oh, great. Some days it may only be 2 or 3. It's a 40-bed facility that was designed to be a regional facility that the other counties were going to participate in. We're going to be trying to generate from revenue. At least that was what was sold to us 20 years ago, and it was resold to us about 15 years ago when they did the big expansion. Mr. Chairman, you sat on the Juvenile Justice Committee at the time, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
And this was going to be a pie in the sky, great thing. We're going to make all kinds of money.
I happen to agree with your position now,
And, you know,
too.
and the board, kicking and screaming, said, wait a minute, when we took the first $2 million grant and built the first unit, the day we cut the ribbon, I put a chain around the door because we didn't have $1 to operate the thing. So we took money at the same time we're putting this $1.5 million into funding these kind of programs. We started putting money into hoping, it's like rubbing sticks like Boy Scouts again. We're good at that as a county board, and expecting to see this come forward. And I tell you, 20 years has gone by, and all we are getting, now it's over $1 million is what the operational subsidy or deficit that we're putting into that program. And that's going to continue to grow. And I got to tell you, none of this money, you're not going to be able to make money fast enough under this program to offset that kind of a thing. So one of the first things we do to tackle the $1.4 million that we still have left to try to come up with before we start using the one-time monies is we need to shut off that hemorrhage right off the bat. I mean, maybe it's nice and maybe we could be proud of ourselves that we've got a facility, but a lot of rural counties, you look around, how many of them have juvenile detention facilities? Very few of them do. And there's a reason. Because just like Trinity County and Modoc County have lost their shirt trying to run a county hospital, we sold our county hospital and haven't had those headaches. And we replaced it by trying to run a juvenile detention facility, and it's going to bury us just like those hospitals are burying those counties. And that's the direction we're going in. And you're right. For the last 4 years, the last time we really got into it, in my opinion, we were about $500,000 we were putting into it. I remember the board screaming bloody murder about that. And now we're up over $1 million, and nobody bats an eye. And yeah, you're right, Bob. The report you brought in, there's some truth to that part of it. Is at the rate we're going, we're in big trouble. And so, to me, what I think what you need to do to start with to balance this budget and put things back on track, so that we can provide basic services to our community, is that we start the process. I mean, you can't just turn it off overnight, but fund maybe a 6-month budget, July 1 through December 31st at 11:59 p.m., the operation of that hall. That gives you about 4 months to phase into a new era, and there you cut your deficit hopefully by 50%. You know, you mothball the facility until such a time a plan can come forward either to reopen it where there's funding or maybe convert it to some other utilization. I mean, it's over there.
There will be offset costs sending the kids out of town.
Well, there is. But I got to tell you, it can't be more expensive than what we're doing now.
I would agree with you with the numbers that are
and only
now.
25% of the kids coming into that facility, according to the report. And I got to tell you, Jennifer, I just real impressed with her. We got to keep her there. And this is not to be discredited, because she basically is new in the position, so she hasn't had a chance to. She's trying to figure out what the heck they're going on there. So I mean, you can't blame her, and you probably can't blame the last couple even. I mean, it goes back to day one. It was a faulty business decision when it was made. So we need to, first of all, I think, address that problem, Mr. Chairman. And once you kind of figure that out, then we can start looking at how to use. I came up with, where's my sheet here?
$6 million.
When you take all the available revenues, the unallocated, this is not taking money from anybody's budget. Everybody's got their budget as they've requested, where they're at based on the discussions with the departments through yesterday. We've got $5 million. This is including our general reserve contingencies, all. We got $5,715,775 that's unallocated, just in those core ones. And there's a lot of other little sprinkled ones in there that that have carryover balances. And if you add that teeter principal, not the interest, but the teeter principal to that, that's that roughly $2 million. That gives you $7,666,000 as a minimum to deal with that $1.4 million deficit that we're dealing with basically in the public safety area. And you can eliminate half of that or a third of that, I think, by making the fundamental decision to close the juvenile hall, because we can't afford to operate that anymore. I mean, it's like $6,000 per kid, you know? I mean, it's per month, per day. I mean, it's like those group homes.
Okay.
Would you please itemize that? That's $3 million in the general fund, $400,000 in the reserve.
Yeah, there's $400,000 in the reserve. The ACO fund, when we take the whole amount, it's $926,000 sitting there. Prison mitigation is $578 and change. Tobacco settlement $636,000. After you take the, when you add all that together, there's $5.7 million there, and then you have another $2 million in terms of what's out there available to put into the mix of things. And but I think what you have to do is you have to shut the spigot off first, and you're going to continue to bleed red there.
So how do we go?
Bob, then Larry.
Boy, I don't even know where to start.
So you want Larry to start first?
No, I'll start. I just got a few things to say. And all due respect to Jim and his passion and his emotion and all that. But do that, the first hiccup, the county's insolvent. That is the worst business plan I've heard in my life. If I run my business like that, I'd have been broke 40 years ago. I never would have got started. The teeter fund, number one, you take that money and put it in a contingency, it becomes political money. It will all be, as the board changes over the next years, we got different people sitting here, it becomes a political nightmare. How you want to do it, what do you want to do with it. You leave it in the teeter account, it guarantees, it is a mechanism to guarantee protection and solvency of the county. You got to have them mechanisms in. I don't care if it's my business or Larry's business or Jim's business. Maybe Jim's don't deal with enough dollars to understand it. But when you're dealing with a $100 million budget, you better have some mechanisms in place to protect the solvency of that county. The contingency is one of them things. The trust funds or the teeter account is another thing. That $2 million needs to be there. We don't know what's going to happen in taxes and the economy and everything in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Anything can happen. When these hiccups come, you better have a means to protect you. And that's what insurance is all about. Why do we have health insurance? Why do we have fire insurance in our house? That's what it's all about. Protection against them unknowns that can happen anytime with nothing you can do to protect yourself. So you have insurance, you have teeter accounts, whatever it be. So, Jim, I think you're totally ludicrous and crazy to even bring that up as a way. And to use the contingency, which is there for cash flow, say there's $3 million to use, you're wrong. There is not. It is there as a protection to the solvency of the county of Lassen, and I will not support any of that. I'm 110% against it all.
I'm not saying we use it.
And let me finish.
Okay.
Your probation, you're right on. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. That is an issue we need to just say today we're going to cut it out of the budget. No, that's wrong. Because I won't make my decision on just your emotion and everything you tell me. I want to see some facts and some numbers. You know, from the probation department, from the CAO, from everybody that's involved, all staff, showing us, from public safety, from these guys sitting back here, explaining to us, you know, why it's bleeding so bad and why it may be the best thing to do to mothball it and take the kids out of town. I know for a fact, just the 14 years on this board, the 35 years in public service and all the other boards, there's a lot of hidden things you don't know about. And once you start bringing all that in, you start realizing, you know what, we're not going to save that much money. So, I mean, there's too many hidden costs and things about. So, I do agree, we need to make the probation the number one budget issue and figure out how to fix it, and it needs to be fixed. I agree with you there. But the rest of it, I think you've lost your mind.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I need to respond. I need to respond to Mr. Pyle, who doesn't even have a mind to lose, if that's his statement, and to say that somebody's lost their mind. The point I was trying to make is
Maybe I missed your point.
You totally missed my point. Okay, when I come up with the $7.5–8 million is all, I'm trying to indicate to you that those are the unallocated resources we have in the budget. I'm not advocating that we spend $7,500,000 just because we can.
But I disagree.
Okay?
They're not unallocated.
Now, and the $3 million in the general reserve is just a small part of it. What I'm saying is you have a lot more flexibility to fix your $1.4 million problem. And that's what I'm just saying is that you've got 5 times that available to work with. And what you need to do before you fix it is you need to shut off the spigot. That's the point I was trying to make. You shut off the spigot and your problem isn't as big to fix, and the amount of money you could, if you were to just dedicate that, take no more tax dollars, and dedicate that $8 million, it would be 7 years before you run out. I'm not advocating that we do that. I would like to keep the reserve intact. I'd like to keep the contingency intact, and I'd like to, if anything, take that $2 million and maybe enhance that, because you can. But to say we don't have any money to take care of the economic development strategy or to build a pool or to do all the various things that people are saying that we need to do, I'm just telling you, that's the point you've missed. That's what you guys are buying it, and you're buying into a strategy to do nothing. And I tell you, we're here to do something.
The more you talk, Jim, the more wrong you are.
Okay, Larry?
It's not unallocated money. That money is there for a very important, concrete reason to keep this county solvent.
We are solving. Yeah, we got all kinds of...
If we leave it there, if it's up to you, we won't be. Jesus Christ.
All right. Supervisor Lassen.
It's like 2011 all over again.
Just somebody else in the barrel. That's
and with all you and I do, Jim, totally respect your everything you're saying. I'm not being disrespectful. When I say you lost your mind.
Well, you can say I lost my mind. I can say you have no mind. So
you can say that.
Larry's got the floor.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm being respectful too. I love you, Bob.
Where's that civility poster?
Right behind me.
I got an award.
But that's because of you.
I know. Now we need to move it over.
I'm the one that has to stare at
The
you.
mellow have mellow stage. So anyway, sorry. Back to just to the teeter deal, the $2 million. Now, the way I understand it, okay, is that we've already paid out those monies? Is that correct?
Correct.
So yeah, so we've funded it. So if the idea was to try to basically invest $1.5 million to bankroll to be in the teeter program. That was our bank, knowing that sometimes we'd have a surplus, sometimes we'd have a negative. So if we didn't put that $2 million back into the teeter fund,
If we didn't take it out, it's there now.
yeah, we don't have it yet.
No, it's not their money.
Yeah. So once we get the money, okay,
Negative balance.
if we don't put that back in, and just say everybody else, paid, and we put their money back in, basically that fund would have like a negative $500,000 because we would
Exactly
yeah.
right.
I mean that's the thing, but it's
Right.
it's kind of confusing, but if you put it like that, that is easy to understand. So, if the Dyer Mountain one was the only one left on our books, if all of the other properties were done, the money went back because we've already fronted it. So now we're only left with Dyer Mountain. So we would basically be negative in that account. $500,000.
Right. The $2 million was spent.
Right.
Although the county internally financed the Dyer Teeter buyout $1.5 million. So you're exactly on target.
Yeah. So we started the kitty, if you will, with the $1.5 million.
Correct.
Yeah. So so if we don't put that money back in there, the $2 million, we're never going to be at 1.5 again. Or even if everybody else came flush, we'd be negative.
If you don't put that money back, the county just paid Westwood's bill and the city of Susanville's bill
So, I mean,
of $2 million.
yeah.
Just write the city out a check for $126,000 and write Westwood Unified out a check for $194,000.
No, yeah, but I mean,
That's what we did.
the long and the short of it is that the money, as I understand it, doesn't. It's not ours really to keep. Well, $1.5 million is.
Right.
If we wanted to keep $1.5 million and only put the $500,000 back in there, then we would have $0 invested in Teeter. We could still do the program, but have to front the money somewhere else.
You get the cash flow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got the cash flow.
But so that's basically the math there.
You got the math.
If we want to have zero balance in Teeter fund, the most we could not put back is 1.5.
That's right.
Okay.
Take a break.
Yeah, I was going to, right. I'm sure the answer is somewhere in between. So we'll take a 5-minute break and come on back and continue to do